Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay in Baltimore. Well, in a presidential election campaign, which has as much to do with reality as professional wrestling, we had a debate which is even further from reality. Anyway, now joining us to give his take on the debate is James Henry. James is an economist, an attorney, investigative journalist. He's served as a chief economist at the international consultancy firm McKinsey & Company, and he's written for Forbes, The Nation, New York Times, and others. Thanks for joining us, James.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So what did you make of the theater last night?
Well, it was like you'd rather watch paint dry. I mean, I was as a diehard progressive, I was waiting for Obama to start punching. He was kind of in his corner taking shots all night long, and he missed a lot of opportunities, I thought, to correct Romney on factual errors, and then to just remind the Americans of who exactly this guy is. This is the 47% basher. This is the fellow who's an offshore millionaire. This is the kind of quintessential representative of the 0.1%. And he's got us, wishing we were back dealing with Ronald Reagan. I mean, it was an evening that was just kind of bizarre. So
I thought Romney was very successful at doing something that Obama's been doing kind of for the last 4 years, which is, to a large extent, Obama kind of has adopted many Republican positions, including, according to Obama, that his own health care plan comes from the Republicans. Except during the debate, Romney was adopting Democratic Obama positions. I'm for pre-existing conditions should be insured.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. I'm not for taxing the rich.
This
for
was
lowering taxes.
Romney, the bleeding heart liberal. He was expressing sympathy with the jobless and the 50 million people on food stamps. He was expressing condolences for people who are having their insurance premiums increased. It was a sort of a long litany of people that he was feeling sorry for.
And how is it possible that Obama couldn't punch through that?
Well, I think the president probably showed up here trying to be presidential. That's probably it may not be in Obama's bones. We really don't know. We've never seen him in many of these head-to-head debates, to be confrontational. And what he was dealing with was here with someone who was, really representing a program that, if it's enacted, will result in austerity, a lot of hardship for the poor and the middle classes, exactly the people Obama chooses to represent. But Obama's, on many of these issues, said, I don't really differ that much from Governor Romney on cutting corporate taxes, for example. I thought that was astonishing. Corporate tax loopholes are one of the big revenue opportunities here. We have companies like Apple and Pfizer and Google transferring intellectual property and setting up, pseudo labs offshore, transferring jobs offshore, then paying themselves royalties to tax havens. That's worth $100 billion a year right there. So, again and again in this debate, I found the president kind of asleep at the switch.
I mean, is it partly, too, that the difference between these two is, to a large extent, a matter of degree, not a real substantive qualitative difference? I mean, when President Obama's out on the campaign trail amongst his supporters, his rhetoric is very progressive sounding. But when you examine the last 4 years, there's not a heck of a lot he's done that at least a centrist Republican couldn't have supported.
Well, I've been critical of his jobs program since day one. I thought that he should have had a much larger stimulus and not crowded it up with so much tax cuts for the top 10%. He relied very heavily on corporate tax cuts to stimulate jobs, and that just didn't work. And I think he really was preoccupied with the health care plan as if there wasn't a deep crisis in the economy for the first 2 years, when he should have been using the congressional majority to really enact the largest stimulus. He also had an opportunity, I think, to deal with the banks much more forcefully and to actually reorganize the banking industry rather than bail them out with hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. But I think on many issues here, Obama didn't defend the kind of record that he's had. I mean, the fact is the stock market is up 30%. People are anticipating a recovery. There's not 23 million jobless in this country right now. There's more like 14 million unemployed. The numbers are moving in the right direction, and he's created quite a few, jobs over the last 4 years. So we're moving in the right directions, and much of compared to other economies around the planet, we've certainly weathered this crisis pretty well. So, I think that Romney got off with a lot of superficial analysis tonight. The business about the $5 trillion tax cut, and I think was hard for most Americans to understand who was right on that issue. But the fact is that Romney has endorsed eliminating the taxes on the wealthy and extending the Bush tax cuts so that amounts effectively to a big tax reduction for the top earning classes that he would be willing to make permanent.
But the other thing is President Obama actually didn't even mention the main economic strategy of the administration, which is actually what the Fed's doing, not what he's doing. It's quantitative easing and giving tons of money, which is supposed to create liquidity, giving tons of money to the big banks, which is supposed to then lend it, except they're not. That strategy he didn't even mention, and that's really all he's got right now.
Well, I think the Fed has been doing most of his work for him, but to give him credit, he has had difficulty with the Republican-dominated Congress. They've been blocking any kind of significant increase in spending or any kind of fiscal reform. So that's an obstacle that he didn't refer to either. So the whole thing was a little, as I said before, bizarre. Here we had the deepest recession in 70 years. We've had that was based in large part on deregulation, excessive deregulation of the financial sector. We've also had, the Bush tax cuts, which created a big part of the deficit that Obama inherited, and these two unfinanced wars. And now we're seeing an election where, we have the Republicans coming in on another tax-cutting agenda, spending-cutting agenda, and being let essentially back into the race. So at this late date, it's very disturbing.
All right. Thanks for joining us, James.
Quite welcome. Thanks.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.